Good day. Today is March 25th, 2026. I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard, and you're watching The Pipeline. I've got the usual crew here today. Former Western Standard opinion editor Nigel Hannaford.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Senior Alberta columnist Cory Morgan, and criminal of the Six Second Nation.
Yes.
Most wanted.
Most wanted criminal of the Six Second
yet.
Nation. Yeah.
Accused.
Innocent until proven guilty.
But you are most wanted.
Well,
The most wanted guys are normally not yet caught.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if
They haven't been convicted yet, so.
Yeah.
And our vice president and news editor, Dave Naylor.
Hello, everybody.
All right. Well, you have just 6 days left to give Mark Carney your guns, more or less. You have 6 days left, actually. That's the short version for the headline, but really, you have 6 days left to tell Ottawa that you have guns that they should come and steal from you. Because if you don't tell them, I guess they're not going to really know that you have guns that they want to steal from you.
Oh, man.
Okay. Anyway, we're going to talk about where we're at with the latest stage of the Ottawa gun grab. The Carney-Smith MOU has missed its first deadline. The much vaunted MOU between the Alberta and federal governments, striking a deal on global warming stuff in exchange for pipeline stuff. Yeah, the Alberta government still says it's good, nothing to worry about, but they've missed the first deadline. Is it on the rocks? We'll talk about it. And we're going to start, though, with the war on the Constitution. The Liberal Party will be debating, and the Supreme Court of Canada will be deciding on the future of the notwithstanding clause, Nigel. The notwithstanding clause is oddly portrayed as anti-constitutional by many on the left, despite it being written into the Constitution and having been a key part of the Constitution in exchange for Pierre Trudeau in 1982 getting the sign-off for the other premiers. But it does appear to be the crosshairs for somehow being nullified.
Well, it's a funny old story, and you're right, this has old roots. It was actually Alberta Premier Lockheed who actually organized the other premiers in 1982, forced Pierre Trudeau to accept the clause as the price of agreeing to the rest of the Charter of Rights, which has many things that they didn't like, and which tends to put political power in the hands of the judges rather than the politicians. So it goes like this. Legislatures write laws, courts interpret laws, and the notwithstanding clause lets legislatures keep a law in force despite charter objections for up to 5 years. So while parliamentary supremacy was largely lost at that time in 1982 with the British North America Act and the Charter, this preserves it a bit within limits, which is actually the most democratic thing that could possibly have happened in the circumstances, which is important. Because if you don't like what Parliament is doing, you can vote them out. But if you don't like what the courts are doing, too bad. Judges are appointed until they're 75. Now, what's happened here, what's brought this to the surface that we're talking about it today, is that the province of Quebec has been working for the last 5 years to legislate that provincial employees may not wear religious symbols while they are at work. So their legislation, Bill 21, you read about it, is under attack from interested parties and has ended up at the Supreme Court of Canada after appeal upon appeal. Now the federal government is not appealing, but it is intervening. It is going to the Supreme Court with what they call a factum and says, this is what we think about this issue, and they're asking the Supreme Court to take their position, which is essentially that the Quebec provincial government legislation should be struck down.
Well, just to interrupt slightly, it's not just the legislation. The legislation has the notwithstanding clause invoked on it because it probably would violate the religious freedoms part of the Constitution.
In my non-legal opinion.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a big stretch, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But they invoked the notwithstanding clause on it, and the feds are arguing that they can't use the notwithstanding clause on it.
What they're saying is they can't preemptively put the notwithstanding clause on it.
Yeah.
That the practice of doing so, by the way, we do that in Alberta as well. It saves a lot of trouble. The idea from the federal point of view, that what they're claiming in their factum is that this actually undermines rights in a more significant way than merely having the thing go before the courts later. Anyway, their intervention stems from concerns that frequent preemptive use of the clause erodes charter rights without sufficient democratic checks, and the federal position seeks judicial clarification to prevent indefinite overrides, which is what you are talking about here in this instance. While provinces, of course, are defending the whole notwithstanding clause as a core feature of Canadian federalism and parliamentary sovereignty. The case is widely seen as one of the most significant constitutional matters since the Charter's enactment, which it is.
So, Cory, it's there's the Quebec case, Bill 21 prompted it, but as Nigel mentioned, Saskatchewan and Alberta have also recently invoked. Ontario did it. Ford government did in Ontario to ban third-party advertisers in elections. That's a case where I don't particularly like it, but the Ford government has the constitutional right to do it. Should it do it? That's a matter of debate. But can it do it? Yes, it can. That's the way it works. Similarly, in Alberta and Saskatchewan, it's been used around keeping boys out of girls' sports, transing underage kids, that kind of thing. Preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause, because we know the way this works. It'll get struck down by Liberal judges, and then it'll spend a decade going through the courts. In the meantime, the judiciary is running things and not Parliament. So even if you do win, or even if you lose at the end and then use the notwithstanding clause, you've had like 3 elections in the meantime. The government's probably turned over, so the notwithstanding clause is useless. So they've begun to preemptively use the notwithstanding clause here. And so, the Liberal Party members at their upcoming convention, I think in Vancouver, are going to debate a resolution to essentially use the federal power of nullification, which hasn't been used since roughly 1930. Consider the nuclear option. You're essentially blowing up the Federation if you do that.
I'm not all opposed to that.
Pardon?
I'm not opposed to blowing up the Federation.
Yeah, so maybe we welcome them to use power of nullification. But that said, that's just Liberal Party members. The Liberal Party's leadership cares even less about what Liberal Party members do than, say, most Conservative parties, which also don't care. But they care even less. So I'm less concerned there. But that the federal government itself is moving this toward the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court now has within its power to essentially rewrite the Charter. This is not a matter of interpretation. This is... it's not even a matter of like reading things in, which they like to do. The living tree, Audrey McLaughlin doctrine of reading things in. Well, they didn't write sexual orientation in, but they would have put it in if it was written today. That's not the way a constitution's supposed to work, but that's reading things in. But this would be reading something out. That if they made the Charter today, they wouldn't put the notwithstanding clause in.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly dangerous turf they're wandering into. And again, some of the debate, I mean, you kind of covered already. I mean, the Charter isn't just something that applies to the Constitution. It's part of the Constitution. It's entrenched. It's there. And we have a formula for changing the Constitution. We've already learned with Leech Lake and Charlottetown, it's virtually impossible to change it through that formula. But if you were to change it, that's the mechanism to do it. If we're going to invalidate parts of the Constitution through appointed judges, it really starts to get to the point of wondering what the purpose of the Constitution is in the first place. It really is. I mean, and that will make, I think, more people start wondering that. I mean, I've already been wondering about the purpose of the Federation for quite some time. But do they understand necessarily the fuse they're letting in Quebec when the Parti Québécois is already moving into a winning position in a fall election out there? We have a referendum approaching in Alberta. It's like they're trying to feed the independence movements, which, again, from an accelerationist point of view, I'm not so sad about that. But still, it's just a terrible type of governance. I mean, if they really think this shouldn't be there, if they think it doesn't belong, start the formula. Get 7 out of 10 provinces and 50% of the population, and let's do it. Don't put it in the hands of appointed judges.
Who appointed them, by the way?
Well, yes, exactly. And that's where the problem.
No, well, I think we talked about this the other week. Even the Conservative judges are pretty liberal. You got Wagner on I think he's the Chief Justice.
He is.
And he was a Harper appointee. And he is not a conservative judge. This is not like the States where the Republican judges are going to be mostly reliably conservative. The Democratic judges are going to be mostly reliably liberal. And sometimes, if there's a really good argument, they can move over. But they generally vote along the lines of their appointees, mostly. unless it's a clear case, like the tariff one. There, Trump lost, even with Republican appointees. But in the case of Canada, the Liberals appoint Liberals, and the Conservatives seem to also appoint Liberals. I don't know, Dave. This is the court taking into its, like, who rules the court? Like, who is the judge who gets to oversee what's the appropriate bounds of the judiciary? Traditionally, that was the legislature, but from the 1982 Constitution Act, where we got the charter and things like that, the judiciary seems to be able to run rogue. It's been doing so ever since the charter was brought in. It made decisions on key issues that should be legislative, however you feel about them. Same-sex marriage, abortion, all sorts of things like that are clearly the purview of the legislature. But now it's in the point of not even just rewriting legislation, which it's done. It's considering at least rewriting the Constitution itself.
Yeah, it's just crazy. They're a wacky bunch. Yes, maybe wearing those robes, but I guess they've got rid of those. But I mean, who was it? The Chief Justice who was involved in a scrap at a hotel down in the States?
No.
It was one of the justices.
One of the justices. And then another one went on
Alberta, unfortunately.
Another one went on walkabout in Ottawa and went missing. The RCMP had to put out a missing persons alert. And there's already calls for Wagner to be removed from the government appeal of the Emergencies Act because he is on the record as degrading the Freedom Convoy truckers. So yeah, they're not. They're a wacky group of individuals, and for the younger listeners, they don't understand how important this notwithstanding clause was. That is what got all the provinces together, and that's what got the constitutional deal done. Mm-hmm. And they're threatening to come along now and rewrite history, and God knows what's going to happen.
I want your take, Nigel, on why this is being considered now. Traditionally, it's actually only ever been Quebec that invoked the notwithstanding clause, protecting kind of French Quebec type stuff. Mm-hmm. And no one in Ottawa has ever said anything from either of the two big parties generally. They've always just let Quebec do what it wants. This time, I don't know, I guess there's two things. Parallel to this, there's been the proactive use of the notwithstanding clause in Ontario, Saskatchewan, and especially Alberta. I think we use it. We also use it to break a teacher strike. So it's been used a couple times very recently, in very quick succession in Alberta. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's an anti-Western thing, because it is technically appealing a Quebec thing. But is it are they appealing on Quebec because the West has done this? Or are they appealing on Quebec because it's now involving Islam? Or is this just a broader principle that the Liberals have stumbled upon, that the Constitution that they primarily authored in 1982 is no longer sufficient to them? What's your take on why this is happening?
They didn't think it was a good thing back in 1982. The whole issue
exactly.
of the
but they did sign on to it. They signed on to it as a part of compromise.
They had no other choice. Otherwise, the whole thing would have fallen apart. So God bless Premier Lockheed for that. As for why this came up now, there's two reasons in my mind, and everybody appreciate that I don't have a hotline to Mr. Carney's brain at all, or anybody else's, but this is what it looks like from where we sit in Western Canada. First thing, this legislation that that Quebec, the province of Quebec, has put out, says it's banning religious symbols, and that's primarily affecting two sets of people: Muslim women and Sikh men. So what they're saying is, you don't wear that. If you're a woman, you don't wear the hijab. If you are a Sikh, you don't wear the turban. I mean, that's pretty invasive. And those people have lots of sympathizers who vote. So from the federal government point of view, this is a great vote getter. We are coming to the aid of a significant demographic within Canada who are being persecuted by the province of Quebec. That's one thing. The second thing is like unto it. It is that they love anything that increases federal power. And this, by taking away the right of provinces to say, no, we're not doing that, or we are going to do this and you can't stop us, that increases federal power. I mean, in the Confederation, the federal government is like a jealous spouse. They hate the idea that anybody has any say over anything, any kind of any kind of authority. So this serves two functions. This is the mind of a Westerner who doesn't like the federal government very much.
All right. Keep Ottawa in the picture here. The MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding signed between the Alberta and federal governments a number of months ago. I mean, what an odd country that we essentially have this is essentially a treaty. We have treaties between governments in Canada, which is an odd thing for a federation to have. It's missed its first deadline, Dave. The premier in Alberta says, "Don't worry, everything's fine." I've talked to senior officials in the government, and they say everything's okay. Nothing to worry about. I don't know, how serious was it that they've missed the first deadline for progress on this?
Well, technically, they haven't missed it yet. It's April 1st.
They said, they're going to miss.
But
she
said they're going to miss.
Birthday, isn't it?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Daniel Smith's birthday. All right.
April Fools. Yeah, you're right, Derek. She's don't worry, be happy type thing. There's four things that they still have to come to an agreement with as of Monday. One was a deal with the Pathways Alliance, a deal on impact assessments, a deal on the carbon tax, and a deal on methane emissions. Well, lo and behold, just today, this morning, they announced a deal on methane. So maybe that's what Smith had in the back of her mind when she said, "Don't worry, be happy." So that's one off the list. There's 3 to go, and she's put all her political capital in this fight against Ottawa. It's her neck on the line. So for her to seem happy, I think she's probably got some cards up her sleeve. She was talking down in Houston at CIRA Week that foreign investors are looking very favorably in terms of building a new pipeline. But she says they won't completely own it, but maybe 30%. So I think there's stuff going on in the background nobody knows about.
Cory, you were all of us were at the UCP convention in Edmonton back in November, and I think it was the day before, 1 to 2 days before the convention opened, that this MOU was signed. And I expected going in there that people would be wait and see on it, like, I don't know. We don't trust Ottawa. Ottawa screws us every single time. I'm tired of being Charlie Brown with the football here. But, wait and see. Our leader of the party and the premier is invested in this. We're going to trust her on it. I was shocked that it was damn near unanimous there. That everyone was like, this is bullshit. This is never going to happen. Why are we even negotiating with them? Even if we did get a pipeline for it, Alberta has to essentially agree to the federal industrial carbon tax as permanent and legitimate. We have to agree to this other carbon capture stuff that's not Ottawa's business. It was very hostile there, coming immediately after the premier and the leader of that party signed an agreement that you put a lot of political capital in. What is the danger for Smith here? Does she look like the person of goodwill who was betrayed by Ottawa if this doesn't work? Or does she look like the dupe who should have known better?
She's at risk of looking like the dupe if this keeps up. As Dave said, you're putting on the smiling face. Well, look, I had this methane agreement. Well, a lot of people look at that as just one more capitulation. We didn't feel we had to do all this to get a bloody pipeline in the first place. Look at this list of things we have to do for them to do something we never should have had to come begging and groveling for to begin with. And then to celebrate that you 1 in 4 of them made the deadline. I'm sorry, that's not a victory. That's another embarrassment. I'm not, and I don't like being hard on Premier Smith. I like what she typically is doing, and I know she has Alberta at heart, but this, I understand that she's got to try and work through mechanisms that are there to get things done, but it's time for her to start taking less of a, smiling, positive attitude and start pulling out some claws. Like, Ottawa is stringing her along, and we're getting sick of it. Yeah. And her own membership, as you said, is getting very, very impatient. We know what conservatives do when that tipping point gets hit within a party. Just ask Jason Kenney or Alison Redford or Ed Stelmach. Don't join the list of all the dead conservative leaders on the sidelines. Listen to your members. You got to do something better.
I think you're right. Cory, when you say the time has come, but when these agreements were made, the time was actually right for the Premier to look as if she was trying to make the whole thing work. If she had been the surly one who had sort of sat there with her arms folded and frowned and said, "There's no way I trust Mr. Carney. There's no way that ever we're going to do any of this stuff," she would have looked and acted like a scold who just nothing would ever satisfy. And I don't think that would have been a good look on her at the time anyway.
You're going to show that you tried, but eventually, as I say, you eventually
gotta
a
try and
line
make
has
this
to
work.
hit.
Okay, now we're at the point where you say, well, if this isn't going to work, we've just got a war going on in the Middle East where the obvious value of everything that this province has been trying to do in energy comes to the surface, and we can't take advantage of it because those guys in Ottawa. This is the time to actually make that point, and I hope she does. Because, but at the time that the agreement was made, I don't think she could have done anything different.
But right now, yeah, we're sitting here. We're sitting on $100 oil. We're spinning our wheels. We're seeing opportunity lost. Even if we started digging a trench tomorrow, the oil might be $30 a barrel by the time we get it to market anyways, though it is going to come up again. We got to
When did you last fill up your truck? $1.76?
Oh,
Yeah, bring it down to $30 from there.
Crazy.
So, I mean, the only benefit we get from high energy prices, though, is that we're ostensibly a major energy producer that can offset the pain of world energy prices. But if we aren't increasing our output to take advantage of that market, we're not seeing a benefit. We're just seeing the drawbacks. I could stand there filling my vehicle with $1.76 a liter gas while I could see an oil pump working in the background. Something's not working right. Yeah.
So I talked with the staff about this, I think it was yesterday morning, something for us to be at least on the lookout for. I'm not predicting it will happen. And I don't want to sound Alberta Chicken Little here, because anytime Ottawa does anything with energy, maybe we're a little too, we have an innate reaction to say, it's National Energy Program 2.0.
Yep.
And we do need to be on the lookout for it because of what happened. And we know that they do have ambitions to do something like that. They just don't know if they can get away with it, kind of thing. But the National Energy Program came to us in the early 80s in extremely similar circumstances as right now. They came after the Yom Kippur War and the Arab oil embargo, and then followed on that in 1979 with the Iranian Revolution and the Iranian oil embargo. And that sent global oil prices through the roof, and you had a Trudeau in Ottawa who had always jealously eyed ownership of the oil patch, but also saw the political advantage and economic advantage for his eastern constituencies in saying, we're going to set a domestic oil price that is going to be lower than the global oil price. So Alberta must first sell its oil domestically before it's allowed to export, and it has to sell at this much lower price, far lower than real market prices. And then after that, then you can sell what you want externally. That was the biggest gist of the National Energy Program. There was other things around ownership stakes and all sorts of stuff, but that was the biggest and most damaging part of it. I mean, it sounds like I'm talking about right now in terms of the lead up. They got us there with first OPEC and then the Iranian oil embargoes. We have the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranian war. I liked, too early to say, but I'm almost at the point of saying I told you so, that Iran was not going to be a good thing, that this was not going to work out. It was not going to be a quick, glorious decapitation and the people rise up. The Strait of Hormuz is closed, and the Iranians so far show signs that they might be able to keep it closed. And there's really just not much America can do because it's not going to be worth getting a carrier sunk over it. So if oil prices continue at these high levels, and possibly even worse as things go, as Israel started targeting some of the energy infrastructure and Iran started retaliating against some of the Gulf oil energy infrastructure. If that stuff continues, this could get a lot worse. And the temptation is going to be awful hard for a government in Ottawa to resist, maybe not the full NEP, but imposing a domestic price cap, because it's for both consumers and industry that are going to increasingly start to suffer here.
So in your grim prognostications there, Derek, are you supposing that Ottawa would now insist that Alberta sell oil east, which it has been trying to do?
That would be, and that's the weird thing about this, is that an Alberta government might agree to it because it's like, well, at least we're going to get a pipeline built to the east, but we're going to be selling at a artificially low price.
Yes, I mean the NEP was all about getting Alberta oil into Eastern Canada.
Yeah,
at a discount.
it wasn't the weird environmental
Well,
stuff. That
it
you
doesn't matter how much Alberta wants to sell oil east. They prefer to bring it in from the United States, which gets it from somewhere else, or get it from Nigeria. Or,
But as the price gets higher and
Yeah.
higher and higher, you could see, and I would certainly hope Smith wouldn't agree to this, but hey guys, we're going to get a pipeline going to the east, so Alberta, you get your pipeline, but there's going to be a price cap on it, artificially imposed by Ottawa, to ease the industrial and consumer costs in the east.
What we do is get the pipe built. As soon as it's there, when you have the ribbon cutting, turn the tap off. We change turn. You can stare at that empty pipe as long as you want. Here's the price if you want to fill it. And what are you going to do? Dig it up again?
But we will have had to agree to a domestic price cap in the meantime.
Hey, deals are made to be broken. Look at the notwithstanding clause.
Okay, touche. Yeah, I guess you can play that game.
I mean, and I know I'm more adversarial than most on this,
Yeah.
but I mean, part of the National Energy Program is talking about forced infrastructure, but that's getting to the point of nationalized infrastructure. And you're not going to get a private investor to want to come in and fill that pipe or deal with it when you're at the whim of the federal government on what you're allowed to sell the product for. So the next step is building, because that's what happened before too. So we started Red Square and built the Petro-Canada Towers and an oil company that managed to lose money for 20 years until it was finally privatized. This cycle will continue, as the other one did, unfortunately. But that other aspect of it was it also created more Western alienation that had never been seen, and it didn't have the simmering fire under it in 1980 already.
They would do this
today.
after our independence referendum.
Yeah.
I think the only circumstance I see that really happening would be if this would be longer term. If we have long sustained, like the NEP did not happen. What year is the Yom Kippur? 73.
Yes.
70. Okay, it didn't happen. NEP did not happen in 73. There was lead up to some of the
70s shortages to really build.
Yeah, so it took years of gasoline shortages, high fuel prices, hammering industry, hammering consumers, and then you saw, you got a similar kind of character as Phil Davis, the Ontario premier at the time, guy who was very willing to work with the Liberals. I could very much see a Doug Ford saying, "Hey, Ontario's manufacturing industry is getting hammered here. Our consumers are getting hammered. We need some cheap gas." You could see a Doug Ford easily working with the federal Liberal government on this kind of thing, where you saw Bill Davis supporting Pierre Trudeau for exactly this kind of thing. I don't think it happens tomorrow. It's not going to happen certainly before an independence referendum, but if it happens, we're going to have to go through a sustained period of high prices.
Well, it'll be really interesting to see what Quebec does if all of this follows out as you have described, because they have said that they don't want a pipeline carrying dirty Alberta oil across Quebec. Fine, guys, don't have it. Carry on paying $3 a liter for your gasoline.
I have a feeling their minds
Their
could be
minds
brought
could be-
to sober up.
You bet.
Yeah, and most Quebecers, when they survey, they don't have a problem with it. It's just the politicians.
It's the political class that seems to hold a lot of sway. But if you have a long period of sustained high prices, bleeding industry, bleeding consumers, the political consensus in Quebec will eventually change, and it'll say, like,
Well, and I've said it forward too, and that attitude, though, would it be cooperative, or it's as I talk about the national discussions always, when oil's $30 a barrel, it's Alberta's oil. When oil's $100 a barrel, it's Canada's oil.
Yeah.
And how well that'll be received, and it gets back to, I guess, Smith's attitude is that the time where she's going to be willing to draw a line in the sand? Because, even if that referendum's passed, I mean, how much more could we deal with?
Well, I guess to paraphrase, high oil prices has many fathers, and low oil prices is an orphan.
Yeah.
I heard it.
It's an orphan well.
The solution to high oil prices is high oil prices, because people go looking for other alternative supplies. Is that the thought?
No. Victory has many fathers.
Oh, I see.
And defeat is an orphan. That's kind of Cory's point. When it's low oil prices, Alberta's dirty oil. But when oil's expensive and everyone's hurting and everyone else wants some of that oil money,
It's a national asset.
simply it's Canadian energy.
How true.
Okay. I'm gonna go to Cory first on this one. So the headline in it is not intentionally misleading. We just didn't know how to make it any shorter and still make sense. But 6 days left, not to give Carney your guns exactly, but to tell Carney about your guns. So what's happened is there's three main categories of firearms in Canada. There's non-restricted, restricted, and prohibited. And under Trudeau, they just very arbitrarily took thousands of different kinds of firearms and went straight from non-restricted all the way to prohibited. And the non-restricted ones aren't registered. The restricted ones are, so pistols and certain kinds of sport shooting rifles and things like that. They're registered, so the government knows you have it. But they went straight from non-restricted all the way to prohibited. So they banned these things without knowing who's actually got them. They didn't really think this through very well. This has been going on for years. The program has failed in comic proportions. They've seized virtually nothing. But now they've all of us, most of us at the table got letters from the federal government saying, hey, you have until this date to notify us that you have some of these naughty guns. And if you don't, they'll be paying. They didn't really say what they'll do, but they'll be paying for it. But you register by this time, hey, we might even give you a little cash, probably pennies on the dollar of what your gun's actually worth. But the deadline for that is 6 days from now.
Yeah, that's their version of a carrot, actually, because what they're kind of saying is, just participate in the program now so that you'll qualify for the buyout when you turn it in voluntarily, as we expect you to do. The real thing is saying, we're going to steal your gun, we're going to tell you the price for it, but if you want to get anything for it, you've got to start participating now. And we just know from the history of firearm owners of the worst category of people who are going to voluntarily to participate in this program.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen. They did their pilot out in Cape Breton, which they thought would be the most.
Tell everyone how well that worked.
Yeah, was it 25 firearms I think they got, or
all from the Trailer Park Boys?
Yeah, pretty much. And I think most of those were things like, oh well, Grandpa left this in the house, I don't even know what it is. Fine, I'll bring it in. It's not the person who owns and utilizes that. They've blown it again, but this is that thing with this government. It's an ideological thing. They will not. They haven't given up since Alan Rock in the 90s with the failed registry. The same thing. They're asking everybody to participate in the registry. The accuracy rate of that thing was only about 60%, I think, at the time, after spending billions on it. It's just absurd. But
they're trying to serve a particular constituency, the Karens of this country,
And Quebec.
Yeah.
mostly in Quebec.
Mostly in Quebec.
This is not to dismiss the gun outrages that have happened, but they don't exactly happen at the same rate in Canada as they do in the United States. So it's not really a fair argument. But they do this partly from ideology. I think there's a lot of people who've never held a gun and would go like that if one was, you want to try it? You targets down there, just give it a go. Don't know, no. But they are very beholden to a certain demographic for their votes. And it's not the demographic of young men who almost entirely went for Pierre Poilievre, and who conceivably among their ranks maybe several gun owners and some with assault-style weapons. So this is another attack on people who don't vote for them and that they don't like and think have, what was the expression, unacceptable opinions. This is a partisan attack against people who don't vote Liberal.
So, Dave, this is when Carney came to the leadership of the Liberal Party, of prime ministership. He kind of did away with some of the low-hanging fruit, some of the dumbest stuff, the consumer carbon tax and, things like that, stuff that really irritated people. This so-called buyback program, it's pretty universally understood to be a disaster. It's not going to work. We all remember, I don't know if viral is the right term, but a lot of us saw the clips of the Minister with the unpronounceable name, Minister of Public Safety.
Just Gary.
Gun grab Gary is
Gun grab Gary. Yeah, I mean, like that's we'll give him that name. That's much easier than what he's got. He didn't know the most rudimentary stuff about firearms at all, and he was made the public safety minister. I mean, it'd be like making me the minister of rocket science. Actually, I'd probably have a more rudimentary understanding than he did of guns. So they know this is a bad idea. They know it's going to be a boondoggle in money, that they're not going to get probably the vast majority of these firearms, that taking these firearms will also not improve public safety. I think Carney knows this. He's not a dummy the way you say Trudeau was. But they're doing it anyway. What do you think the politics are behind that to make Carney do something that he probably knows is a bad idea, but do it anyway for political reasons?
No, because he can get away with it, right? It's not going to cost him any votes for, the people like Nigel said who voted for Polyev and our gun owners. Gun grab Gary is one of the top most incompetent ministers that Carney has. He's fighting that race closely with Lena Diab of immigration. But nothing's going to happen, Derek. We've seen it all before over the decades. It'll be a multi-billion-dollar boondoggle. Everyone will express shock and horror, and after the next election, they'll go and rewrite it again and come up with a new way to try and find laws that people won't obey. I imagine people who own these type of weapons are very busy at the moment with shovels and land and burying them so they can't be found, and then claiming they were lost, which is what people are going to do. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, we should start an office pool on who they have to make an example of somebody, right? They're going to have to arrest somebody.
Why'd you look at me?
Well, I'm thinking we should have an office pool, whether they're going to come for you or Cory.
Well, I don't have any firearms on my property.
No.
I don't own any guns. I don't know what this is about. I don't know why you'd look at me. So, Cory, I think Dave was half right. I think he got it half the answer right. That he's not going to lose any votes from these people because gun owners just overvoted
for him anyway. Yeah.
But the people who do care about this, he stands to lose votes if he doesn't do it. And these guys, I mean, they're dedicated to it. In their worldview, the government says something's banned, therefore it's gone. They don't seem to see that logic applying to anything else, like say drugs. You can ban drugs all you like. You can maybe push it underground, but they don't go away. But you've got these anti-firearms groups out there. They could cost the Liberals votes. I think
they could cost, because where are they going to go? The NDP's dead in the water.
Yeah,
and these loony left gun advocates that are pushing, that used to hold some sway, they're not going to go to the Conservatives. It's kind of that similar zero sum. Those conservative young men are not going to vote Liberal under any circumstance, anyways. But likewise, that constituency they're pandering to doesn't really have a home that they can migrate to.
No, they do. No, they do. Especially considering a lot of this comes from Quebec, when the Bloc Québécois is very much not a spent force. And the NDP is still there. It's kind of like the Black Knight with his arms and legs chopped off at this point, but it is still alive, even if it's insisting it's just a flesh wound. It's still technically alive, and it does take votes away from the available universe of liberal possible votes. So, people on the left have more choice than people on the right. People on the right say, well, what are you going to do? There really isn't much. The PPC is essentially spent.
There was Cory. There was an interesting poll out today. 44% of NDP voters, nearly half, have no idea who's running for the leadership.
Yeah. Of NDP voters.
Of NDP voters. Nearly half have no idea who's running for the leadership. So I think you're giving them too much credit.
No,
Derek.
but they still sit around 12% in the polls, and that's 12% the Liberals would very much like to have, or to not let it get bigger than 12%.
I don't know if the anti-firearm movement really is that big, though. I mean, if you talk to somebody, but enough that it's a deal breaker that they're going to say that's where I'm basing my vote, is that issue. I mean, for the firearm owner, it certainly is, but for the person who's anti, I don't know. I don't
So
know.
it's still a trigger issue?
I mean, I could be wrong because it's not my mindset. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody I don't understand. So maybe it really is a deal breaker to them, I guess. I just wouldn't see that as, there's just a lot of issues going on.
Yeah.
Is that the issue that's going to make...
Well, I'm not sure how many people it's the single issue for, but it's probably like a big one. Like when I've decided in the past at various times to non-vote Conservative, it's normally not one single thing, but it's an accumulation. It's something, Aaron O'Toole running on a carbon tax that was even worse than Justin Trudeau's. That was the final straw. But there was a lot that got me there to that final straw first. This would be a final straw for some people or a contributing fact for others, but particularly in Quebec, where the NDP is not their main rival on the left, it's the Bloc.
Yeah.
I think that's why they're doing it, is because they don't want to open themselves up on the left side. They know it's a bad idea. They know it's not going to work. They know it's going to cost a bunch of money. But, Did the long gun registry completely kill the Liberals for all time? Well, it did with gun owners, but they've already lost it. So the loss side of the equation has already been baked into the price for the Liberals, but they stand to lose on the other side if they don't do it.
We'll see. I mean, they're stubbornly hung up on it for sure. When they know it's a known loser. I mean, they certainly don't have the courage to say, let's crack down on the Mohawks who are importing all the illegal guns that are actually committing the crimes. That would be refreshing. But yes, that's not where they're going to go.
And there is actually only one actual military gun that was on the list of banned guns, and that was the SKS. And they very promptly pulled it off.
And you know why? Because Indigenous people own thousands of them. They
They're
use them for deer hunting up north. They're cheap and reliable and solid.
The communists really only ever did one thing well, and that was produce large quantities of cheap and reliable small arms. You know, communism somehow, that's one thing that worked. And so, you know, those things are all over the place, especially going to reserves.
And there's lots, and actually, unfortunately, a few of them have been used in some pretty bad crimes over the last few years.
You know, it's kind of ironic, isn't it? 150 years ago, the problem was white guys going to the Indians and selling them rifles and whiskey. And now the problem back east is white guys going to the Indians to buy guns for illegal use and pick up some illegal cigarettes. You know, I mean,
well, you got to give them a little credit there, I guess. Fair enough.
They really turned that around on us.
Let's just call that my parting shot.
All right, well, that's a good segue to our parting shots. Dave.
Okay, presented without comment, but an interesting development at the legislature today. There's being talk from the leaders of the independence people that there's a lot of support in the UCP caucus for independence. A press conference on crime today, alongside the Premier, the Public Safety Minister, Mike Ellis, was wearing a Canadian flag and an Alberta flag pin. And he was asked about it, and, he's supporting Alberta within a united Canada. And the Premier held up Ellis's notepad or binder, and it was adorned with Canadian flags as well as Alberta flags. So looks like there's at least one UCP member that is not an independent supporter.
The one who reads land acknowledgements. Yeah.
Yes, that's him.
Yeah. That's Mike. If you're watching, at the very least, cut out the land acknowledgements. Like, good God. All right. Speaking of land acknowledgements, we're on the traditional territory of Cory Morgan.
Oh, yeah, and I hit this a bit on my show, but I just have to hit it again. Hats off to Jen Gerson for putting out the picture on X of the room set aside at City Hall in Calgary where all the toys are laid on the table for councillors and city staff to play with to try and wind down because they have the hearings over the land use.
Oh, that wasn't meant for kids?
Oh, no.
I thought it was meant for kids.
That really is.
That's meant for the councillors.
That's for the councillors and staff. They got a therapist and a therapy dog coming in too, because these petty wastes, and that's what I'm going to call them, are going to get their feelings hurt because some upset landowners are coming in and speaking in harsh terms over the hearings over the next few days. So they're doing all of this to accommodate so these snowflakes don't melt down over the course of this. Jen has been back and forth saying, no, this is people not understanding. This wasn't a joke I'm posting on X. This was really what she's seen.
I saw it briefly.
Yeah, and their kid is playing with it because a kid plays with toys. But
I didn't think it was a big deal because I was like, oh, they got a room for the kids with toys. Whatever. Scroll past.
That's the safe space for the... Yeah.
Mercy.
So it's worth mentioning again. You wonder why your governance is bad and why there's much more to be flushed out than just the mayor and a few councillors. There's your example of it.
I took my older kid to the dentist yesterday, and I had to sit for an hour in the waiting room with my 3-year-old. And I hadn't been to this one because we had switched dentists and we'd gone back. I'd been there since before COVID. And the toy room was empty. There was no toys in it. Just like some potted plants and stuff. I said, what happened to the toys? They're like, well, we had to get rid of them during COVID. And I guess, like many things, they just never came back to normal. And so I had to sit there for an hour with no toy room for my 3-year-old.
To spend time with your kid.
Yeah, and I was thinking like, well, you sit alone with my son for an hour in a waiting room with no toys. If you had toys, I could play with them.
Just reactions in.
There was nothing. So he was like taking a bottle of water and dumping it. Like, it was a bad scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could have used the toy room. I did not know that was for the actual camp. I thought that was for the counselors' kids.
Oh, that's their little cool down retreat.
Oh. Well, I'm trying not to take a Lord's name in vain right now.
They got a therapist and everything already lined up.
Yeah,
So is this the Western Standards Good Cause of the Month that raise money to put toys in hospital waiting rooms?
No, raise money for toys for our city councilors.
So they got to do it like other places. When Derek yells at me, I go to the bathroom and cry in silence as we're supposed to, not having a
Take it like a
excuse.
man.
That's right.
We need a toy room
Cry in
here.
private.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's called the bar downstairs.
The bar downstairs, right? It's closed now.
Oh, yeah.
So Nigel, was that your parting shot?
Yeah, let's call it a party.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good because we're practically out of time. I'll just take a quick note for those who haven't seen our email go out or the brief video statement I made. Beauty pageant contestant and all-round beautiful woman Jessica Yaniv has sent a legal notice to the Western Standard that she's taking us to the Human Rights Commission for hate crimes and essentially for misgendering him. And also that follow up with civil suits to get us as well, saying you've misgendered me and this is blah 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 blah, and I'm taking you to the Human Rights Commission. And we have to take this seriously because just like a month or so ago, there was the Neufeld decision in British Columbia. I actually read the full legal judgment today. It was so much worse than I thought. I mean, we've tried to do it justice in our reporting, but I read the full legal decision. It's way worse than anybody knows. It is positively totalitarian. It's not just you're not allowed to say this. You are required to say this, and you must believe it in your heart. Otherwise, you're guilty of a hate crime here. And this guy got fined $700,000 for disagreeing with trans ideology being pushed on little children. We are way more guilty than that guy. And Jessica Yaniv in his state legal notice to us said, that this is not just isolated incidences, it's systemic. To which I responded to Mr. Yaniv, it's absolutely systemic. In fact, it's more systemic than you know. And I shared with him the screenshots of our style guide where we systemically misgender him as a policy. It's literally in black and white. We say, if we're reporting on a trans person, but it's not relevant to the story, well, fine. We'll call them whatever they want. He or she, no skin off our back. But if it is relevant to the story, we're going to use their real biological sex. And we're not going to use silly words, made-up words like cisgender and crap like that. We're going to say that's a male, that's a female, that's a man, that's a woman, etc. Anyway, so this is coming down the pike for us. We've raised some money from Western Standard readers and viewers already.
Did you want to mention how Mr. Yaniv first came to public attention?
Oh, the wax my balls guy, lady. Yeah. So he first came to notoriety for going after some poor Vietnamese immigrant ladies running some kind of aesthetic salon or something. Nails and waxing, and he demanded that they wax her balls. I just love saying that sentence. He demanded that they wax her balls.
Just nuts.
It is nuts.
Well done.
And don't forget also, I think it was the city of Langley had to send her a cease and desist order because she kept getting into a bubble bath and then phoning the fire department to say she can't get out. So all these big hunky firefighters had to come over repeatedly to her to help her get out of the bath.
Yeah.
She's nuts.
And he's tried to get into beauty pageants in Ontario. He's made death threats against people. He's vandalized property and gone after people. This person is, I don't mean this flippantly. This person is a very public danger. This is someone who I really don't think should have a gun. If we're going to have good gun legislation, that dick should not have a gun. And as long as Jessica Yaniv is allowed to have a gun, but we're told we're not allowed to have guns, none of this stuff makes sense. Because that's someone I do not trust with a gun. All right, so anyway, I'm sure this is going to be... I did just caption this clip right now because this is going to get played at my trial at the BC Human Rights Tribunal. So I just want to say to everyone in the crowd, thanks for coming out. And to the commissioner on the tribunal who's watching this, go F yourself. You have no business judging what a publication can say. So, that's my parting shot. All right. Nigel, Cory, Dave, thank you very much. John on production for running the show, thank you. And thank all of you for joining us today and your support for the Western Standard. If you're not yet a subscriber, go to westernstandard.news, click on subscribe. It's $10 a month or $100 a year, and you'll get unlimited access to all Western Standard content and support the work that we're doing. Thank you very much. and God bless.